Detroit Become Human selling 15 million copies is not just a milestone. It's a moment that deserves to be talked about in detail because it represents something much bigger than raw numbers. In an industry dominated by multiplayer titles, live service models, and games built around constant monetization, Detroit stands as proof that powerful storytelling still matters. This is a single player, narrative driven experience that puts emotion, choice, and consequence above everything else, and the fact that it has reached 15 million copies sold worldwide shows that players are still hungry for meaningful, thought provoking games. This isn't just success, it's validation for a whole genre that some people have been claiming is dying for years. When Detroit Become Human first launched back in 2018, it was a bold move by Quantic Dream. Narrative games are always a gamble because they rely almost entirely on player engagement with the story. There's no competitive ladder, no endless progression system, and no traditional gameplay loop to keep people coming back out of habit. Instead, Detroit asks players to invest emotionally. It asks them to think. It asks them to reflect on morality, free will, identity, and what it really means to be alive. Those are heavy themes for a video game, yet Detroit embraced them fully and trusted the audience to take the journey seriously. What makes Detroit so powerful is how personal it feels. The game just doesn't tell you a story, it hands you responsibility for it. Every major moment forces you to make a choice, and those choices ripple outward in ways that can completely change the outcome. Entire characters can live or die based on your decisions. Entire storylines can be cut short or opened wide depending on how you act. Very few games make you feel the weight of your actions the way Detroit does. When something goes wrong, you can't reload it away and pretend it didn't happen unless you deliberately choose to. The game wants you to live with your decisions, and that is incredibly rare in modern gaming. Selling 15 million copies also puts Detroit into an elite category. That number rivals massive franchises and blockbuster titles that have been around for decades. For a new IP, for a single player narrative experience, and for a game that doesn't rely on constant updates or monetization hooks, that's astonishing. It shows that when a game respects its audience and tells a story worth experiencing, people will support it. Over and over again, Detroit proves that quality storytelling still sells. A huge part of Detroit's success comes from its characters. Connor, Kara, and Marcus are not just playable avatars, they feel like real people with real struggles. Connor's conflict between duty and emotion, Kara's desperate attempt to protect Alice in a world that sees her as disposable, and Marcus' transformation from obedient servant to revolutionary leader are arcs that stay with players long after the credits roll. These characters are written in a way that allows players to shape who they become, which creates an incredibly strong connection between the player and the story. The performances deserve special recognition too. The motion capture and acting in Detroit are on a level that still holds up today. The subtle facial expressions, body language, and emotional delivery bring authenticity to every scene. When a character is scared, you feel it. When they hesitate, you understand why. When they make a sacrifice, it hits harder because it feels real. That level of immersion is one of the reasons people continue to recommend Detroit years after its release. Another major factor in Detroit's longevity is replayability. This is a game that practically begs you to play it again. After finishing your first run, you immediately start thinking, what if I made a different choice there? Or what if I had saved that character? Or what happens if I go down the darker path? Every decision branches into new possibilities, and each playthrough feels like a different version of the same story. That kind of replay value doesn't come from grinding or unlocking cosmetics. It comes from curiosity and emotional investment. The PC release also played a huge role in expanding Detroit's audience. It introduced the game to an entirely new group of players who may never have owned a PlayStation. On top of that, Detroit became a massive presence on streaming platforms and YouTube. Watching other people play Detroit is almost as fascinating as playing it yourself because their choices are often completely different from yours. You get to see how differently the same story can unfold, and it reinforces just how personal the experience truly is. Detroit's success also sends a strong message to the industry. Single player games are not obsolete, story driven games are not outdated. Emotional, narrative focused experiences still matter. Not every game needs to be a live service. Not every game needs to be competitive. Sometimes players just want to sit down and experience a story that makes them feel something. Detroit Become Human proves that there is still a massive audience for that kind of experience. 15 million copies sold also means 15 million unique stories, 15 million versions of Connor, Kara, and Marcus, 15 million players who made choices that reflected their values, their instincts, and their emotions. Some chose peace, others chose revolution. Some tried to save everyone, others embraced chaos. Some walked away from the game feeling hopeful, others walked away shaken. That's the power of interactive storytelling, and Detroit stands as one of the best examples of it. In a time where many games are designed around engagement metrics and monetization strategies, Detroit feels almost timeless. It reminds us that games can still be art. They can still be emotional experiences. They can still challenge how we think and feel. That's why this 15 million milestone matters. It's not just a win for Quantic Dream, it's a win for storytelling and gaming as a whole. If you enjoyed this video and you appreciate deep story driven games like Detroit Become Human, make sure to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads, especially if you love gaming news, retrospective, and discussions about classic and modern titles. And if you want to support the channel even further, check out my Patreon, where my latest exclusive video is a deep dive into 10 underrated classics you should replay. It's a great way to support what I do while getting bonus content you won't find anywhere else. Until next time, game on.